The alley smelled of damp concrete and desperation as Caleb's sneakers skidded on the pavement, his heart pounding louder than the shouts behind him. He gripped Noah's hand, their fingers locked in a promise they'd made just hours ago, to never let go, no matter what. The crowd's jeers grew closer, a venomous chant slicing through the Denver twilight. "Freak! You don't belong here." Caleb, 22, had always known loving Noah would come with a cost. Growing up in a small Colorado town, he'd hidden his truth behind football jerseys and forced smiles. But meeting Noah at a community college art class changed everything. Noah, 24, with his wild blonde curls and fearless laugh, painted the world in colors Caleb had never dared imagine. Their first hug, outside a coffee shop on Colfax Avenue, had felt like freedom, until the glares started and the whispers turned to threats. Now, sprinting through the labyrinth of downtown alleys, Caleb's lungs burned. Noah's hand was slick with sweat, but he squeezed back, urging Caleb forward. "Keep going, Cal. We're almost there." Noah's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. They'd only wanted a night out, a burger at Sam's Diner, a walk under the city lights, but a group of strangers had spotted their embrace outside the diner and decided it was an offense worth chasing them for. The alley opened into a wider street, neon signs buzzing above. Caleb's legs ached, but hope sparked when he saw the glow of a convenience store. Safety, maybe. He pulled Noah toward it, but a bottle shattered against the wall beside them, glass spraying like shrapnel. "You can't run forever," a voice bellowed, thick with hate. Caleb's chest tightened, not just from the run, but from the weight of a world that seemed to hate them for existing. Noah stumbled, his ankle twisting on a loose cobblestone. Caleb caught him, their faces inches apart, breath ragged. "I'm not leaving you," Caleb whispered, his voice fierce despite the tremor. Noah's hazel eyes locked onto his, and for a split second, the chaos faded. They were just two people in love, not a spectacle, not a target. But the moment shattered as footsteps closed in. 5 figures emerged from the shadows. Men, their faces twisted with anger, fists clenched. The leader, a stocky guy with a shaved head, spat on the ground. "You think you can flaunt that in our city?" he snarled. Caleb pushed Noah behind him, his skinny frame no match for the threat but standing tall anyway. Then, a new sound cut through the night, the sharp crackle of a radio. A police officer stepped into the streetlight's glow, her presence like a wall between the mob and the couple. Officer Elena Marquez, 32, had seen too many nights like this in her 5 years on the force. Her dark eyes scanned the scene, her hand resting lightly on her holster. Not threatening, but ready. "Back off," she said, her voice calm but unyielding. "Now." The mob hesitated, their bravado faltering under her stare. Caleb's knees nearly buckled with relief, but he didn't dare move. Noah's hand found his again, a quiet anchor. Elena's gaze flicked to them, softening for a moment. "You two okay?" she asked, her tone carrying a warmth that felt like a lifeline. Caleb nodded, unable to speak. The mob muttered but dispersed, their courage dissolving under Elena's authority. She turned fully to the couple, her badge glinting. "Let's get you somewhere safe," she said, gesturing toward her patrol car parked nearby. As they followed, Caleb glanced at Noah, whose face was streaked with sweat and determination. They'd survived this moment, but the night wasn't over, and neither was their fight to simply be. Elena drove them to a quiet street near the station, her eyes scanning the mirrors for any sign of pursuit. In the back seat, Caleb leaned against Noah, their hands still clasped. "Why do they care so much?" Caleb murmured, more to himself than anyone. Noah squeezed his hand. Because they're scared of what they don't understand, he said softly. But we're not the ones who should be running. Elena caught their words in the rearview mirror. She parked and turned to face them, her expression a mix of resolve and empathy. You shouldn't have to run, she said. But some people think love is a battlefield they get to control. I'm here to make sure they don't. Caleb felt a spark of hope, fragile but real. Elena's radio crackled again, pulling her attention, but before she stepped out, she handed them a card with her name and number. Call me if you need me, she said. You're not alone in this. As she walked toward the station, Caleb looked at Noah, the weight of her words settling in. They weren't just words, they were a shield, a promise that someone saw them, not as a problem but as people. But the night's fear lingered. Caleb knew this wasn't the end. The city, with its bright lights and dark corners, held more than just angry strangers. It held their future, their love, and the battles they'd have to face to keep it. As Noah rested his head on Caleb's shoulder, whispering, "We'll be okay," Caleb wondered if they could ever stop running, or if they'd have to fight for every hug, every moment, forever. The station was a blur of fluorescent lights and coffee-scented air as Caleb and Noah sat in hard plastic chairs, their hands still intertwined. The hum of officers typing reports felt distant, like static from a radio tuned to the wrong station. Caleb's pulse hadn't slowed since the alley, his mind replaying the shattered bottle, the mob's shouts, and Elena's steady voice cutting through it all. Noah shifted beside him, his curls damp from the night's chaos. "You're quiet," he said, nudging Caleb's shoulder. "Talk to me." Caleb forced a smile, but his eyes were heavy. "Just wondering how many times we'll have to do this," he said. "Run. Hide. Hope someone like her shows up." Noah's jaw tightened, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, he traced circles on Caleb's palm, a silent promise they'd weathered worse. Elena returned, her boots clicking on the linoleum. "I've got your statements," she said, holding a clipboard. "No arrests tonight, those guys scattered, but I'll keep an eye out. You want to press charges if we find them?" Caleb hesitated. The idea of justice sounded good, but the reality, courtrooms, questions, exposure, felt like another kind of chase. Noah spoke first. "We just want to live, without looking over our shoulders." Elena nodded, her face unreadable but kind. "I get it, but living shouldn't mean hiding. You've got rights, and I'll back you up." She handed them a flyer for a local LGBTQ plus support group, its edges worn but the words bold. "You are enough." Caleb tucked it into his pocket, feeling its weight like a talisman. Outside, the city had quieted, the streets now bathed in the soft glow of dawn. Elena offered to drive them home, but Noah shook his head. "We'll walk. Need the air." She watched them go, her silhouette steady against the station's glass doors. Caleb felt her gaze like a safety net, but the world beyond still felt like a tightrope. Their apartment was a small studio in Capitol Hill, a haven of mismatched furniture and Noah's half-finished canvases. As they climbed the creaky stairs, Caleb's mind churned. He thought of his mom back in Greeley, who'd cried when he came out but still called every Sunday. He thought of Noah's dad, who hadn't spoken to him in 3 years. Love was supposed to be simple, but for them it was a rebellion. Inside, Noah kicked off his shoes and pulled Caleb onto the couch. "We're still here," he said, his voice fierce. "They didn't win." Caleb wanted to believe him, but the fear lingered, a shadow in his chest. He leaned into Noah, their foreheads touching. "I just want to hold you without it being a war," he whispered. Noah's laugh was soft, bittersweet. "Then we keep fighting. For every hug, every kiss, every damn day." The next morning, Sunlight spilled through their window, warming the room. Caleb woke to Noah sketching at the kitchen table, his pencil dancing across paper. "What's that?" Caleb asked, peering over his shoulder. The drawing showed two figures running, hands clasped, with a third standing tall, shielding them. "Us," Noah said simply. "And her." Caleb's throat tightened. The sketch wasn't just art, it was proof they weren't invisible. They decided to attend the support group from Elena's flyer, held at a community center in 5 Points. The room was packed. People of every age, background, and story, their voices a mix of laughter and pain. A trans woman named Aisha shared her journey of finding acceptance. A non-binary teen, Riley, talked about their first pride. Caleb listened, feeling the knot in his chest loosen. Noah squeezed his hand under the table, and for the first time in hours, Caleb breathed easy. But the peace was fragile. As they left the center, a man across the street stared too long, his lips curling into a sneer. Caleb tensed, but Noah tugged him forward. "Don't let him in," Noah said. "He doesn't get to own us." They walked on, but Caleb's eyes kept darting back, scanning for shadows that might follow. That night, they cooked pasta in their tiny kitchen, music playing softly from Noah's phone. It was a moment of normalcy, but Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that they were stealing it, like thieves in their own lives. He wondered if Elena was out there, patrolling the streets, keeping the city's pulse in check. He wondered if the mob from the alley was still out there, too, waiting for another chance. As they ate, Noah talked about his next art project, a mural for the community center, something bold and unapologetic. "I want it to scream love," he said, his eyes bright. "Love that doesn't apologize." Caleb smiled, but his mind was elsewhere, replaying Elena's words. "You shouldn't have to run." He wanted to believe her, but the city outside their window felt like a battlefield, and their love was still a target. The mural took shape over weeks, Noah's hands stained with paint as he worked late at the community center. Caleb often sat nearby, watching him blend colors into a vibrant chaos of figures embracing under a rainbow sky. "It's us," Noah said one evening, stepping back to admire his work. "All of us." The mural stretched across the center's exterior, a beacon in 5 Points that drew both smiles and scowls from passers-by. Caleb tried to focus on the beauty of it, but the alley chase haunted him. He'd started jumping at loud noises, checking locks twice before bed. Noah noticed, pulling him close one night. "You're carrying it all, Cal. Let me help." Caleb wanted to, but fear was a heavy load, and he didn't know how to share it without breaking. Elena checked in regularly, sometimes stopping by the center to chat. She'd become a quiet constant, her presence grounding. One afternoon, she brought coffee and sat with them on the center steps. "You're doing something brave," she told Noah, nodding at the mural. "This city needs it." Noah grinned, but Caleb saw the weight in Elena's eyes. She knew the risks of visibility. The risks became real again at a local festival in Civic Center Park. Caleb and Noah had a booth to promote the mural, handing out flyers and chatting with supporters. The crowd was a mix of allies and curious strangers, the air thick with food truck smells and live music. For a moment, Caleb felt safe, laughing as Noah painted a rainbow on a kid's cheek. Then he saw him, the stocky man from the alley, his shaved head unmistakable. He stood across the park, watching them with a smirk. Caleb's stomach dropped. "Noah," he whispered, nudging him. Noah followed his gaze, his face hardening. "Ignore him," he said, but his voice was tight. They kept working, but Caleb's hands shook as he handed out flyers. The man didn't approach, but his presence was a storm cloud. As the festival wound down, Caleb and Noah packed up, their banter forced. Elena was there, working crowd control, and when Caleb told her about the man, her jaw clenched. "Point him out," she said, scanning the park. But he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. "I'll file a report," she promised, "and I'll keep watch." That night, Caleb couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, staring at the street below. Noah joined him, wrapping a blanket around them both. "We can't let one guy ruin this," Noah said. "The mural, the center, it's bigger than him." Caleb nodded, but the fear was a knot he couldn't untie. He thought of Elena's card in his wallet, a lifeline he hadn't needed to use yet but kept close. The next day, they returned to the center to find the mural defaced. Red spray paint slashed across the figures, the word "freaks" scrawled in jagged letters. Noah froze, his paintbrush dropping. Caleb felt rage boil up, but it was drowned by grief. All that work, all that love, marred by hate. Aisha from the support group arrived, her eyes blazing. "We'll fix it," she said. "They don't get to erase us." The community rallied, volunteers scrubbing paint and repainting alongside Noah. Caleb helped, his hands steadying as he worked. Elena stopped by, her uniform crisp but her expression soft. "This is why I do this job," she said, gesturing to the crowd. "For you. For this." Caleb felt a spark of something, hope, maybe, or defiance. But the victory was bittersweet. As they finished cleaning, a news van pulled up. A reporter, a young woman named Lila, wanted to cover the mural's story. Noah hesitated, wary of exposure, but Aisha urged him forward. "Let them see us," she said. "Let them know we're here." The interview aired that night, Noah's voice steady as he talked about love and resilience. Caleb watched, proud but terrified, knowing visibility came with a cost. As the segment ended, Caleb's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You can't hide forever." His blood ran cold. Noah saw his face and grabbed the phone, his own expression darkening. "We need to tell Elena," he said. Caleb nodded, but the message echoed in his mind. The city was watching, and not all eyes were kind. Elena met them at a diner the next morning, her notebook open on the table. Caleb showed her the text, his hands unsteady. She read it, her face a mask of focus. "Forward it to me," she said. "I'll trace it, and you two stick to public places for now." "Okay." Noah nodded, but Caleb saw the strain in his eyes. They were fighters, but even fighters get tired. The community center became their sanctuary. Noah threw himself into the mural's restoration, his brushstrokes fiercer now, as if painting could hold back the hate. Caleb helped organize events, finding purpose in the chaos. Aisha and Riley became constants, their stories weaving into Caleb and Noah's. Aisha spoke of her wife, Maya, and their quiet life in Aurora. Riley shared dreams of studying art in New York. The center was a patchwork of hope, but the threatening text lingered like a bruise. Elena's investigation hit dead ends. The number was a burner, untraceable. She increased patrols around the center, her presence a quiet reassurance. But Caleb noticed the toll it took on her. One evening, as they locked up, she lingered. "My brother's gay," she said, her voice low. "He left Denver years ago because of nights like the one you had. I stayed to make sure others don't have to leave." Caleb didn't know what to say, but her words felt like armor. The mural's unveiling was set for a Saturday, a community event with music and food. Caleb and Noah worked late the night before, adding final touches. As they stepped back, Noah's arm around Caleb's waist, the mural glowed under the streetlights. Figures of every color, embracing, with "Love is fearless" painted in bold white letters. Caleb felt a lump in his throat. "You did this," he told Noah. "We did this," Noah corrected, kissing his temple. The unveiling drew a crowd, hundreds, more than they'd expected. Aisha emceed, her voice ringing with pride. Lila, the reporter, was there, her camera crew capturing the joy. But Caleb's eyes kept scanning for threats. He spotted Elena near the edge, her radio crackling softly. She gave him a nod, and he tried to relax. Then he saw him again, the man from the alley, standing at the back of the crowd. Caleb's heart raced, but before he could alert Noah, the man turned and slipped away. Caleb grabbed Noah's arm. "He's here," he whispered. Noah's face paled, but he stayed calm. "We tell Elena. Now." They found her near the food trucks, her eyes sharpening as Caleb described the man. "Stay with the crowd," she said, already moving. "I'll handle it." She disappeared into the sea of people, her radio buzzing with urgency. Caleb clung to Noah, the festival's joy tainted by fear. Aisha took the mic, dedicating the mural to "every heart that dares to love." The crowd cheered, but Caleb's pulse thundered. Elena returned, her expression grim. "Lost him," she said, "but I've got backup coming. You two stay visible, stay with people." Noah nodded, but Caleb felt the weight of the unknown numbers text. "You can't hide forever." He wondered if they'd ever feel safe, if love would always come with a chase. That night, they stayed at the center late, surrounded by friends. Riley painted a small rainbow on Caleb's wrist, a quiet act of defiance. Noah sketched in his notebook, his lines sharp and angry. Caleb watched him, love and fear tangling in his chest. They'd built something beautiful, but the world kept trying to tear it down. As they left, Elena's patrol car was parked outside. She rolled down her window. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. "You're not alone." Caleb wanted to believe her, but the city's shadows felt alive, watching, waiting. He held Noah's hand tighter, their steps echoing in the quiet night. They were still here, still fighting, but the battle was far from over. The days after the unveiling were a blur of hope and tension. The mural became a local landmark, shared on social media with hashtags like "Love is fearless." Strangers left flowers at its base, but Caleb couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He and Noah stuck to Elena's advice, avoiding empty streets, but the city felt like a chessboard, and they were pawns in a game they didn't choose. Elena's patrols were constant, her updates brief but steady. "Still no trace on the number," she told them over coffee one morning. "But I've got eyes on the center." Caleb noticed the circles under her eyes, the weight of her promise to protect them. He wanted to thank her, but didn't know how to match her sacrifice with words. Noah threw himself into teaching art classes at the center, his energy a shield against fear. Caleb joined him, helping kids paint their own stories. One girl, Sophia, drew a family with 2 dads, her smile bright as she showed it to them. "This is you," she said, pointing to the figures. Caleb's heart swelled, but the joy was fleeting. His phone buzzed with another text. "You're not safe." He showed Noah, who cursed under his breath. They called Elena immediately. She arrived within minutes, her face set in determination. "We're escalating this," she said, taking their phones to log the new message. "This isn't just harassment. It's a pattern." She arranged for a detective, a gruff man named Torres, to take over. Torres was skeptical, warning them that burner phones were nearly impossible to trace. But Elena pushed back. "These are threats," she said. "They deserve protection." Caleb saw the fire in her, a reminder that they weren't fighting alone. The center planned a vigil for victims of hate crimes, a response to the mural's defacement and the growing tension. Caleb and Noah helped organize, stringing lights and setting up candles. The night of the vigil, the street glowed softly, filled with faces, some familiar, some new. Aisha spoke first, her voice steady. "We're here because love is worth fighting for," she said. "And we won't stop." Caleb stood beside Noah, their hands clasped. He scanned the crowd, half expecting the man from the alley, but saw only support. Riley lit a candle, their eyes shining. Lila filmed quietly, her presence a quiet promise to amplify their story. Elena stood at the edge, her uniform a beacon. When Noah took the mic, his voice cracked but held. "This mural, this moment, it's for everyone who's ever been told their love is wrong," he said. "We're still here." The crowd applauded, but Caleb's relief was cut short. A shout came from the back. A bottle sailed through the air, shattering near the mural. Chaos erupted, people scattering as Elena and other officers moved in. Caleb pulled Noah behind a table, his heart racing. "Stay down," he hissed, shielding him. Elena's voice boomed, ordering the crowd to disperse. Caleb glimpsed the man from the alley, his face twisted with rage, before he vanished into the fray. Elena and her team detained a few agitators, but the man escaped again. She found Caleb and Noah, her face flushed. "You're okay," she said, more command than question. "We're moving you to a safe house tonight." Caleb nodded, numb. Noah gripped his hand, his eyes fierce. "They can't scare us out of this," he said. "Not now." The safe house was a small apartment in Lakewood, sparse but secure. Elena stayed until they settled, her radio crackling with updates. "We're closing in," she said. "Torres is tracking leads." Caleb wanted to believe her, but the texts, the bottle, the man's face, they were a storm he couldn't outrun. Noah pulled him close, their breaths sinking in the quiet. "We're stronger than this," Noah whispered. Caleb nodded, but the fear was a tide, pulling him under. The safe house felt like a pause, not a resolution. Caleb and Noah spent days there, the walls closing in despite the sunlight streaming through. They painted, talked, held each other, but the outside world loomed. Elena called daily, her updates a mix of progress and frustration. "We've got a name," she said finally. "Jason Jakes, the guy from the alley. He's got a record, assault, harassment. We're close." Caleb's relief was tempered by dread. Knowing the man's name made him real, not just a shadow. Noah, ever defiant, sketched Jake's face from memory, turning fear into art. "He doesn't get to define us," Noah said, pinning the sketch to the wall. Caleb admired his fire but couldn't match it. He felt like a soldier in a war he hadn't enlisted for. The breakthrough came a week later. Elena arrived, her face triumphant. "We got him," she said. "Caught him trying to deface the mural again. He's in custody." Caleb's knees buckled, and Noah caught him, their embrace fierce. "It's over," Noah whispered, but Caleb knew it wasn't, not really. Jakes was one man, but the hate he carried lived in others. The trial was swift, Jakes pleading guilty to harassment and vandalism. Caleb and Noah testified, their voices steady despite the courtroom's weight. Elena sat behind them, her presence a shield. The judge sentenced Jakes to community service and probation, a slap on the wrist to some, but Caleb felt a shift. Visibility had a cost, but it also had power. Their story, amplified by Lila's reporting, sparked conversations across Denver. The mural stood untouched after the trial, a symbol of resilience. Caleb and Noah returned to the center, their lives weaving deeper into its community. Aisha and Maya invited them for dinner, Riley sent them art school applications. Elena became a friend, stopping by with coffee and stories of her brother's new life in Seattle. One evening, Caleb and Noah stood before the mural, the city quiet around them. "We did this," Noah said, his hand in Caleb's. "We're still here." Caleb nodded, tears stinging his eyes. The chase in the alley felt distant, but its lesson lingered. Love was a fight, but it was worth every step. They walked home, hands clasped, no longer looking over their shoulders. The city's lights glowed softer now, less like a threat and more like a promise. Caleb thought of Elena, of the community, of every hug they'd fought for. They weren't just surviving, they were living, loudly, unapologetically. And for the first time, Caleb believed they could keep going, not as fugitives, but as warriors of their own story.